Good evening, dear students. Welcome to the English Canvas. So, today we continue our poetic journey through Alfred Lord Tennyson's deeply moving elegy in Memoriam A.H.H. So, it's a masterpiece that beautifully captures grief, love, and philosophical introspection. In the last class, we explored till section 12. We explored the earlier sections that deals with sorrow, memory, and spiritual learning. Today we will move forward with fresh eyes and open hearts, uncovering more of Tennyson's emotional world and poetic brilliance. So stay tuned till the end for detailed explanation, interpretative insights, and the exam oriented analysis. And if you are enjoying this literary journey, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps this effort alive and growing. So let's begin. Tears of the widower when he sees a late lost form that sleep reveals. So Tennyson compares his grief to that of a widower who, while dreaming, sees the form of his deceased wife again. So this brief moment of joy and memory in sleep reawakens sorrow. It's a painful illusion, and moves his doubtful arms, and feels her place is empty. Fall like these. So the widower, unsure if it's real, reaches out only to realize she is not there. His arms fall back empty, and his tears are like the poet's own, full of realization and helplessness, which weep a loss forever new, a void where heart on heart reposed. So this grief never fades. It feels new each time, as though Arthur has just been lost again. There was once there was once closeness, friendship, and comfort, and now there's just a void. And there where warm hands have pressed and closed, silent still I be silent too. So the warmth of clasped hands, of mutual affection, has turned into silence, and this silence will continue until the poet himself dies. So it till I be silent too. It means his this silence will be continue until he himself dies, right? So which weep, the comrade of my choice, an awful thought, a life removed. So the poet Tennyson mourns his chosen companion Arthur, who not just a friend but his soul's comrade. Awful here means deeply reverent and moving. Arthur's removal from poet's life is unbearable. The human-hearted man I loved, a spirit, not a breathing voice. So Arthur is remembered as a man of deep emotion and kindness, human-hearted. It means a man of deep emotion and kindness, but now he is only a spirit. He is a spirit now, no longer a voice, a breathing voice, no longer physically present there. Come, time, and teach me many years. I do not suffer in a dream. So the poet pleads with time to teach him that this grief is real, not a dream. It still feels too strange, as though he might wake up and Arthur would be alive. For now, so strange do these things seem, my eyes have leisure for their tears. So everything feels surreal here. His eyes, Tennyson's eyes, no longer fixed in shock, now have time and space to weep freely, right? My fancy's time to rise on wings and glance about the approaching sails. It means now he has passed the first wave of grief. His imagination drifts, picturing ship arriving. Now he watches the horizon, imagining Arthur's body returning, as though they brought but merchant's mail and not the burden that they bring. So it means the approaching ships, the approaching says the approaching ships look ordinary, like they carry goods. But to Tennyson, one of them carries Arthur's remains, a burden, It means a burden of grief and love. So this section 13 here, the section 13 captures the dreamlike grief where sorrow feels surreal and constantly renewed. The poet, the uh, the poet uses the metaphor of a widower's dream to illustrate the sharp pain of illusion and the heart-wrenching return to reality. As time passes, his mind begins to accept the loss, but not without tears nor without deep emotional weight. The coming ship, likely bringing Arthur's body, reminds him that what seems ordinary to the world is, for him, it's a devastating burden. Right now, the next section is, if one should bring me this report that thou hadst touched the land today, and I went down unto Quay and found thee lying in the port. So the speaker imagines someone telling him that Arthur has returned and arrived by ship. So he pictures himself going to the harbor, the quay, and actually seeing Arthur's ship docked. So the tone here is wishful, a grief-stricken fantasy that longs for resurrection. And standing muffled round with woe, should see thy passengers in rank come stepping lightly down the plank and beckoning unto those they know. So he imagines himself in a he imagines himself standing sadly wrapped in the sorrow. The other passenger descends from the ship happily, recognizing their loved ones, come step lightly down the plank and beckoning up to those they know. It means the other passenger descend from the ship happily, recognizing their loved ones. So it's a contrast between the poet's internal grief and the joyous reunion around him, कि वो तो जिसका वेट कर रहा है वो तो खुद से नहीं आएगा, उसका दोस्त, लेकिन जो बाकी लोग हैं जो आ रहे हैं, शिप से उतर रहे हैं, वो तो अपने लव्ड वंस को बहुत ही खुशी से रिकॉग्नाइज कर रहे हैं. यहाँ पर ये रीयूनियन का जॉयफुल एटमोसफेयर बना हुआ है. और इसी तरफ यहीं सेम जगह पर जो पोएट है उसका इंटरनल ग्रीफ है. So there is a contrast between the poet's internal grief and the joyful reunion around him. And if along with these should come the men I held as half divine, should strike a sudden hand in mine and ask 1,000 things of home. So then in this imagined moment, Arthur steps off the ship. मतलब ये इसका imagination है कि Arthur खुद भी शिप के बाहर आया. The man he once saw as half divine. ये आर्थर के लिए बात हो रही है जिसको वो हाफ डिवाइन देखता था, क्योंकि वो खुद आया बाहर. आर्थर टेक्स हिज हैंड, should strike a sudden hand in mine. It means Arthur takes his hand suddenly and warmly and begins to ask him many things about home. He and ask 1,000 things of home. So Arthur begins to ask the poet many things about his home. So this is Tennyson's emotional vision of reunion filled with affection and connection. Next stanza is, and I should tell him all my pain. मतलब मैंने सारा उसे दुख बताया, and how my life had drooped of late, and he should sorrow over my state and marvel that possessed my brain. So the speaker imagines sharing his sadness with Arthur. He would explain how lifeless his life is, lifeless and gloomy that he had been since after death, after Arthur's death. After in return would feel sorrow, मतलब वो भी आर्थर भी खुद sorrow फील करेगा for his friend's condition. उसका स्टेट देखकर, उसकी कंडीशन देख के आर्थर को भी दुख हो रहा है. आर्थर्स फील, he would feel sorrow for his friend's condition and wonder what had made him so hopeless, right? And I perceived no touch of change, no hint of that in all his frame, but found him all in all the same. I should not feel it to be strange. So if Arthur appeared unchanged, no touch of change. If Arthur appeared unchanged, no sign of death or decay, as if nothing had happened. The poet says he wouldn't even find it strange, right? So that's the depth of his denial and grief. So he so badly wants Arthur back. He could believe it without question, right? So section 14, this section 14, um, Tennyson imagines an emotionally powerful but unreal reunion with Arthur. It reflects the psychology of mourning, where the mind creates vivid, imagined scenes that feel more real than reality. He longs so deeply for Arthur's return that even a supernatural event, Arthur stepping off a ship as if never dead, would not surprise him. This shows the intensity of love, loss, and the inability to fully accept the death. Right now, the next section is tonight the winds begin to rise and roar from yonder dropping day. The last red leaf is whirled away. The rooks are blown about the skies. So the speaker describes a stormy evening here. At night falls the dropping day. Winds roar across the sky. The last red leaf represents the final remnant of autumn, now blown away and symbolizing loss. So rooks, it's like a kind of crow, um, are tossed in the chaotic wind, reflecting confusion and disarray, just like the poet's emotions, right? The forest cracked, the waters curled, the kettle hurtled on the lea, and wildly dashed on the tower and tree. The sunbeam strikes along the world. So the trees are cracking in the storm, water surfaces are curling from the wind, animals gather for shelter, sensing the danger. The remaining rays of the sun are scattered fiercely across the landscape. So it creates an eerie contrast, beauty in chaos, and shows how violent grief can feel. So now the next stanza is, and but for fences which ever that all thy motions gently passed, athwart a plain of molten grass. I scarce could brook the strain and stir. So the poet's fancies or comforting illusions imagine Arthur moving peacefully, his soul gliding across a smooth glowing glass like plain. These gentle images help him endure the brook, the violent strings of both the natural world and his emotional state. So, without this belief, the storm outside would be unbearable, too much like his inner storm. Now, the next stanza is, that make the barren branches loud, and but for fear it is not so, the wild unrest that lies in would dot and pour on yonder cloud. So the wind is making the barren branches of the trees rattle and moan. He clings to hope that Arthur has passed into peace, but fears that may not be true. Without hope, his mind would obsess over the cloud, symbolizing the uncertainty and the spiritual doubt and looming despair that rises upward always higher and onward drags a laboring breast and topples round the dreary west, a looming bastion fringed with fire. So the cloud rises ever higher. जो क्लाउड है वो बहुत ऊपर चले गए, एज इफ पुल्ड बाय heavy breath, a laboring breast. This hints at suffering or tension. It moves towards the darkening west. The darkening west is a metaphor for death, ending the dreary west. It's a darkening west. It's a metaphor for death, ending in loss. The cloud appear like a battlement, the bastion fringed. It's a large, powerful, and edged with fire from the sunset, majestic but ominous. So this section 15, yes, this section 15, in this section Tennyson masterfully links nature's stormy moved to his own sorrow and confusion. He imagines Arthur peacefully crossing into the afterlife, but without that belief, his heart would fixate on despair. So, the section shows a conflict between grief and hope, external chaos and internal emotions. So, rising cloud becomes a symbolic expression of loss, longing, and the mystery of what lies beyond. Right now, the 16th section is, what words are these have fallen from me? Can calm despair and wild unrest be tenants of a single breast, or sorrow such a changeling be? So the poet is startled by his own words and emotions. He asks, how can I feel both deep and resigned sorrow? Right? काम डिस्पेयर का मतलब है यहाँ पर resigned sorrow. So he's asking, how can I feel both deep resigned sorrow and chaotic and agitated grief, the wild unrest. वो कह रहे हैं कि मैं काम डिस्पेयर भी फील करूँ और मैं वाइल्ड अनरेस्ट भी फील करूँ. मतलब काम डिस्पेयर का मतलब हो गया रिजाइंड सोरो, और वाइल्ड अनरेस्ट का मतलब हो गया chaotic और agitated grief. तो at a same time, how can I feel both opposite things together? So can sorrow really shifts from so dramatically, like a changeling a mythical child that changes identity. जो changeling है ना, वो एक mythological character, एक child है जो कि अपनी identity बदलता रहता है. तो ये कह रहा है कि how can I how can sorrow really shifts from so dramatically, right? Or clothes she only seemed to take the touch of change in calm and storm, but knows no more of transient form in her deep self than some dead lake. So here he wonders if sorrow only appears to change with his mood, calm and turbulent, right? But is in fact always the same underneath, like the dead lake, which is still and unmoving at its core, that only reflects surface impressions, right? That hold the shadow of a lark hung in the shadow of a heaven, or has the shock so harshly given confused me like the unhappy bark. So the dead lake holds only reflected shadows. Perhaps his feelings are not also just shadows, not the truths. So he again asks, he asked that has the sudden shock of Arthur's death disoriented him like a ship, a bark crashing into a rocky coast at night, right? That strike by the night, a craggy shelf, the stagger blindly ere she sink, and stunned me from my power to think, and all my knowledge of myself. So the shipwreck metaphor continues here. The poet feels like a ship that struck a hidden rock in the dark, is now staggering blindly, and is about to sink. So he feels mentally stunned, unable to think clearly or even understand himself. So, and made me that delirious man whose fancy fuses old and new, and flashes into false and true, and mingles all without a play. So his grief has made him like a madman whose imagination mixes past and present, truth and illusion in chaotic, uncontrolled way. His mind, once ordered, is now fragmented, overwhelmed by mourning. So this section 16, the section 16, um, in this section, Tennyson questions the duality of his emotions. How can calm and wild grief coexist? He compares his sorrow to a dead lake, unchanging at depth, and to a shipwreck, symbolizing confusion and collapse. So the poet worries he is losing control of his mind, blurring past, present, real, and unreal. So this section portrays grief not just as sorrow but as a psychological storm shaking the very core of identity, right? Now the next section is, thou comest much wept for such a breeze, compelled thy canvas, and my prayer was as the whisper of an air to breathe thee over lonely seas. So the poet addresses the ship as if it's a secret thou comest much wept for. So this ship is deeply mourned for because it carries Arthur's body. The breezes that moves the ship's sails compelled thy canvas. Seems like it is called forth by the poet's prayers. His prayers were gently like a whisper of an air, softly urging the ship across the sea. He imagines his grief and love powering the ship's journey, right? For I in spirit saw thee move those circles of the bounding sky. Week after week the days go by. Come quick, thou bringest all I love. So Tennyson envisions the ship sailing through space, circle of the bounding sky, perhaps symbolic of the time or divine realms. As day passes, week after week the days go by, so that as the day passes he imagines the ship's steady approach. The last line of the stanza is, come quick, thou bringest all I love. So it's as emotionally intense. Arthur's body is all that remains of his cherished bond, right? Henceforth, wherever thou mayst roam, my blessing like a line of light is on the waters day and night, and like a beacon guards thee home. So now the ship has completed such a sacred task. So टेनिसन blessed it in turn, क्योंकि अब जो शिप ने जो काम किया, ब्लेस्ड टास्क किया है उसके दोस्त को, उसके क्लोजेस्ट फ्रेंड आर्थर को उसकी डेस्टिनेशन तक उस तक लाने का, तो उसने अपना ये सेक्रेट टास्क कंप्लीट किया है. सो अब टेनिसन उसको इटर्नली ब्लेस कर रहा है, एंड हिज ब्लेसिंग्स, माई ब्लेसिंग्स, टेनिसन्स ब्लेसिंग्स becomes a line of light shining on the ocean like a guiding force or lighthouse. So the ship is now consecrated in his memory, and he wishes it well for future voyages, right? So may whatever tempest mars mid-ocean spare thee sacred bark, and balmy drops in the summer dark slide from the bosom of the stars. So he prays that no storm ever harms this sacred bark. A boat, sacred bark का मतलब है यहाँ पर boat in the ocean. May the ship always be safe, kissed only by the gentle summer rain. Drops in the summer bark, dark is means the gentle summer rain. Balmy drops का मतलब है descending like a stardust from heaven. So this imagery elevates the ship into something divine and almost celestial, right? So kind an office had been done, such precious relics brought by thee. The dust of him I shall not see till all my widowed race be run. So the ship has performed a sacred duty by returning Arthur's body, his precious relics. So Tennyson knows he will never see Arthur again in his life, the only when his own life, his widowed race ends. तो वो कह रहा है कि अब आर्थर को तो वो कभी नहीं मिल पाएगा, जब तक उसकी लाइफ नहीं ख़त्म होती तब तक तो वो नहीं मिल पाएगा. सो द टर्म widowed beautifully expresses poet's deep sense of personal bereavement, right? तो अब यहाँ पर ये देखिए उसको कितना दुख है अपने दोस्त के जाने का, कि वो उसे ये पता है कि ये आखिरी मौका है जब वो उसकी वो रेलिक्स को, उसके रिमेनिंग्स को वो आखिरी बार देख रहा है, क्योंकि उसके बाद उसका फ्यूनरल हो जाएगा, उसको बरी कर दिया जाएगा, वो बरीड हो जाएगा. तो उसके बाद तो फिर उसको वो जब तक उसकी खुद की लाइफ, टेनिसन की खुद की लाइफ नहीं ख़त्म हो जाती तब तक तो वो अब दोबारा से आर्थर को नहीं देख पाएगा. सो थ्रू दिस सेक्शन Tennyson envisions the ship carrying Arthur's remain as sacred and blessed. His prayer seems to guide its journey across the sea. The ship how holy, now holy for, मतलब शिप अब उसके लिए बोलते ना कि बहुत ही प्रीशियस चीज़ है उसके लिए, होली है. Now holy for the role it has played, it is given eternal protection in the poet's imagination. This section blends grief with serenity as Tennyson accepts Arthur's physical returns and prepares spiritually for the long mourning ahead, right? Now the next section is, it is well, it is something we may stand, where he in English earth is laid, and from his ashes may be made this this violet of native land. So the poet finds some consolation. It is well, it is something कह है ना उसने यहाँ पे से कुछ consolation मिला है in knowing that Arthur's body has returned and is buried in his homeland. His ashes have mingled with English soil, and perhaps a violet, a symbol of purity and mourning, may grow from them, showing how nature and memory entwined. It is little, but it looks in truth as if the quiet bones were blessed among familiar names to rest and in the places of his youth. So it may seem a small comfort, but the fact that Arthur now rests among familiar names, family ancestors or familiar names, the family, his family and his ancestors, is soothing. So his bones lie in the land of his childhood, a peaceful resting place that brings spiritual solace. Tennyson elevates this burial into a kind of blessings, right? Come then, pure hands, bear the head that sleeps or wears the mask of sleep, and come, whatever loves to weep, and hear the rituals of the dead. So the poet imagines a funeral. He calls upon the pure hands to carry Arthur's body. He uses the phrase that sleep or wear the mask of sleep. So it is showing that the tension between death and the appearance of the peace. He invites all who grieve to join and participate in the ritual, suggesting both a religious and emotional ceremony of farewell. Even yet, if this might be, I falling on his faithful heart, would breathing through his lips impart the life had almost dies in me. So, despite his funeral, the poet expresses a desperate wish, if only he could breathe life back into Arthur just by being close to him. So, the poet says his own life is nearly dead from grief and yearns to revive both of them through their bond. So, there is a strong undercurrent of spiritual and emotional resurrection here, that dies but endures with pain and slowly forms the firmer mind, treasuring the look it can't find, the word that are not heard again. So his grief has not killed him, but it continues painfully, slowly forging a stronger character, the firmer mind. So he clings to the memories, the sight of Arthur's face, the sound of his voice now forever unreachable. So these lost elements become spiritual treasures stored in the poet's inner world. So in this section, Tennyson reflects on the comfort of Arthur's final resting place in England, a land near to them both. Through the evocating imagery, he acknowledges the dignity of death while still yearning impossible resurrection. So this section balances acceptance and longing, moving towards spiritual growth through pain. So that brings us to the end of today's journey through In Memoriam A.H.H, where we explored section 13 to 18. Deeply emotional, profoundly spiritual, and poetical, powerful. So Tennyson's grief, love, and philosophical reflection have given us much to think about. We will continue with remaining section in tomorrow's class, delving even deeper into this poetic masterpiece. If you found today's session insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world and helps us to grow this learning space together. Until next time, keep reading, keep reflecting, and take care. Thank you.